Hello and welcome to DW-Kit. In this tutorial, we will learn how to bind the form that we created earlier to a workflow. This system allows users to use workflows via forms, while admins can monitor current states for all users in all processes. There are usually multiple steps or activities in a workflow, with commands that transition from one step to another. There are many ways to create or add a workflow. Read about Workflow Engine and watch our Visual Designer tutorials for more info. The links are in the description. Workflow Engine is a separate component integrated into DW-Kit, so feel free to use it. First, let's select Manage Schemes from the menu on the left. We've already created a workflow called Simple off-screen, so let's open it by double-clicking on it. You can create your own test process or download ours by clicking the link in the description. As you can see, it's a very simple workflow scheme that describes a linear process, starting with an activity called Start and followed by two completion states. Then we arrive at the final activity and the process is complete. It's vital to understand that activities or steps are the building blocks of your process, and the state is a process property. In this example, all the states have the same names as the activities, but they may vary in real-life projects. Users or admins can transition one activity into another by clicking the respective buttons in the interface. The first transition will launch our process. Let's double-click on the green arrow to open its properties. Here is a list of available commands, and the Start command is assigned to it. Users will see the Start button in the interface, and by clicking on it, this command will be activated. It'll launch the process and move it to the next state. The next two activities have two commands assigned to them: Approve to move the document forward, and Reject to move it back. We can see and modify the list of commands by clicking on this button on the top panel. Note that button labels in the user interface will be the same as command names here. However, you can customize these names in the localization properties. Learn more about it in the Workflow Engine documentation. Here at the top, you can also download or upload a scheme in XML format. If you've made any changes, don't forget to click Save. Okay, now we're ready to bind a document form to this workflow. Go to Manage Forms, Document, and click Workflow. Select Simple. By the way, your system may have other processes, but we'll select this one just as an example. Now that our form is linked with the workflow, we need to add buttons so form users will be able to change the workflow state. Drag and drop the workflow bar from the Containers panel on the right to the top of our form. Open its settings. Type Set State for the appropriate button caption. This will allow us to select a state from the drop-down when the process is created and set another state by clicking on this button. Go to Events. Here we can see that by clicking on the Command button, the workflow command will be executed, but in order to save or refresh the form, we're going to need to set a chain of actions. Let's do that by opening this drop-down list. Select Validate, Save, Workflow Execute Command, and Refresh. Continue assigning these actions for the On Set State button. The only difference here is that now we select Workflow Set State. And click Save at the top. Now let's test out how it works. Open another browser tab and go to Documents. Create a new document. As you can see, now we have a top panel with workflow buttons. Fill in the form and click Start. Now the process has been created in the system and you can see its current state and the option to set it. By clicking Approve or Reject, we can move to the next or previous step. If you don't need the Set State button and the drop-down associated with it, or would prefer this feature to be disabled, you can easily remove it in the Workflow bar control settings when designing a form. click Save at the top. We'll refresh the page. This is what the end user will see when contributing to the process. Now let's see how to manage processes in admin mode. First, let's copy the document ID from the URL. Switch to another tab as Admin and go to Manage Instances to have an overall look at all the processes. In this window, you can see all the processes created in the system and filter the list to search by certain criteria such as process ID, status, activity, state, etc. Insert the document ID in the process ID field and click Search. Note that both the document and the process have the same GUID. This simplifies search processes in system administration. Select the process that we've just created. Check the current state of the process, marked in yellow. An admin can also change the process state from this window. If necessary, you can give users the option to see the process in the Visual Designer interface like admins do. To do that, we need to add a few strings of code to DWKit, Document, Action Handlers. The Open Workflow Designer function will open an active process that has its own unique ID in the user's browser. You can find this code sample on our GitHub page via the link in the description. Now add a button to the form and set the action with the name as this function. Okay, let's switch tabs to see the document. We'll refresh the page. And now we can see the new button we've just created. Click on it to open Visual Designer. Our form shows the state value that's stored in the document table, but there's no information on the tables that will be modified in Workflow Engine, so we need to fix that. In this part, we'll modify the code of the DWKit system to link process changes with the document entity. Automatic linking isn't implemented for this particular task, and it's not in the GUI, because mapping between a schema and a business entity may be complex, especially if we have multiple workflows. Writing a few lines of code is way easier. Go to your database management app and open dbo.workflowProcessInstance. You can see the ID, state name, and other columns. We need to save the state name in the document table. Now switch to the DWKit project code. Open the file workflowinit.cs in the application project. Find the Activity Changed Event Handler. This handles when one activity is transitioned to another. Let's review what this event handler does. First, it'll load the data model description. In this example, it'll work with the document data model. The next line of code will load the document from the database using its ID. Then it'll change its state from the process instance to the current one. Then it'll save the changes to the database. Feel free to modify the code to fit your specific requirements. Now you know how to link forms with workflows. You've also learned in previous tutorials how to link data, forms, and workflows, and now you can design any business process for your organization, create a front-end user interface for users, and make it function on its own. However, complex processes may include many employees from different teams with different permissions. For example, salespeople shouldn't have access to accounting documents, and accountants shouldn't have access to end-user data that's visible only to salespeople. In the next tutorial, we'll learn how to set up user roles and permissions. Thanks for watching. Give this video a like and subscribe to the OptimaJet channel to stay up to date with our latest tutorials.